Hello and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me. I'm your host, Rosie Gill-Moss. Before we go into today's episode, I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a heads up because it is different to anything that you'll have heard from us before. It's different because today's guest is going to talk about the night her husband was murdered in their home. It sounds, and indeed it is, the stuff of nightmares and horror films. It's, I guess, everybody's greatest fear. And for her to be able to come on and talk to me about it, it's just incredible. She's so, and I know we hate this word, but she is really, really brave. So have a listen. You might be surprised by the fact that there's a little bit of laughing going on, but you know, that's widow humour for you. So the next voices you're going to hear will be me and Katrina. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Katrina, and a very warm welcome it is. Hello, Kat. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Rosie. Thank you. It's good to finally be here.
I'm really kind of nervous. I'm excited. I'm a whole whirlwind of emotions about this because Katrina and I, we've known each other since right at the beginning, haven't we?
Yeah,
so
2 months after. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Ben died on the 12th of March and Katrina's husband died on the 31st. So, and both their deaths, I mean, I will let Katrina tell you in more detail herself, but both their deaths were sudden and traumatic. So we kind of clung to each other from across the Atlantic, didn't we? You know, we would just talk to each other and we used to send like random little parcels over to each other. I sent you the British classic that is Marmite, which I don't believe you were a huge fan of.
Not my favorite. But you also sent me a bracelet that said keep fucking going. And I wore that for years.
You sent me one that said breathe, and I wore that till it fell apart. And I think I fared better with the American sweets as well. But it does mean that I know your story, and I know it more than, you know, a lot of some. Normally I'll just have a kind of basic outline before I speak to somebody here. So I know that this is going to be really shocking. I know it's going to be upsetting. And I think, but I also know that it's going to be really powerful. And a lot of the work you do now is around giving victims a voice. So I'm trying not to give away your story too much. In fact, I'm going to just let you take the floor, if that's all right. So without any further ado, I'm going to let you tell your story.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess start at the beginning, you know, where my husband and I first met. So it's a little bit scandalous. When I first met Josh, I was still dating my high school boyfriend. We had been together like 7 years or so. And, you know, it's fine. But my best friend Rachel had moved into a new condo and she became friends with her neighbor Dustin. And they eventually, you know, started like having parties together and hanging out together. And Josh was Dustin's best friend. So we met each other through our best friends.
Oh, that's meet cute stuff, that though, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And I just remember at a party one night, Josh had been frustrating with dating or something. And he was just like, I just want to meet a vegetarian woman who is an atheist and doesn't want kids. And I was like, oh, that sounds like me. Right. So yeah, eventually, you know, we started talking. We mainly started talking through, you know, just like online through Facebook chat or whatever. And eventually, yeah, I broke up with my high school boyfriend. We hadn't done anything before that, so it wasn't too scandalous.
No judgment here. Judgment-free zone, you're good. I was actually with somebody else when I met Ben, so.
Oh, wow, another similarity.
I know. Maybe it's a punishment. No, right? Sorry, too dark.
Love it. Yeah, so we, you know, started dating. We moved in pretty quick together. We actually moved into my friend Rachel's house for a while. We were roommates with her. And then we rented another little house. And after about 5 years of dating, we got married. And then we were married for 3 years before he was killed. And should I get to that? Is it any more background we want?
Are you ready? Because you've just said there that Josh was killed, and that is the ultimate horror of this story, is the fact that he was taken from you in such a brutal way. And I think it is something that for most people really is the stuff of nightmares. It's the cold sweats waking in the night. And what you're about to share is the reality. It's the truth. And I think
Right.
that's, I really hate calling my guests brave, but you know, here you are, right? I don't think you can be
Thank
called
you.
anything other than brave. So yeah, if you're comfortable doing so, my lovely, you tell us a story and you can stop at any time. Okay, is that's a cat, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
that a cat in the
Oh,
background?
dog collar.
Dog.
Yeah. There's dogs and cats here. They might make appearances.
I just wanted to explain for the recording. The Santa bells were not part of the story.
Right. Right. No, that
Let's
makes
go
sense.
into it laughing. This is how we've got through the last nearly 7 years. So yeah, go on, Kat. You tell us your story, my love.
Yeah. All right. So Josh and I were living in a house in a nice historic neighborhood. Historic where I come from, you know, it was built in the early 1900s. I know that's much different for y'all over there. But yeah, beautiful neighborhood. You know, the historic neighborhoods tend to be a little, you know, upper middle class, nice neighborhood. We loved it. We were just renting and dreamed of buying there someday. Um, and we had gone, you know, to sleep one night, normal Friday night. I think we made enchiladas for dinner and some cocktails, and went to bed. And at about 2 a.m., uh, I wake up to our bedroom door being opened. We usually slept with the bedroom door closed because the cats could be kind of annoying at night. So we would kick them out. But we were sleeping and the bedroom door opened. And all I remember seeing is a silhouette of a man. So we had a nightlight on kind of down the hallway. So he was backlit. And I just remember crazy wild hair and just a figure of a man standing there. I immediately start screaming like I've never screamed before. Um, Josh, without hesitation, he was on the other side of the bed, runs in front of the bed and out the bedroom door just to confront whatever that man was, whatever was going on. I could no longer see either of them. I grab my phone and hide under the bed in our bedroom to call 911. Out in the dining room, you know, I think maybe a fight's going on. I hear some grunts, you know, like he's being punched, just like, kind of things. I don't hear screaming. I don't hear gunshots. You know, I'm thinking like, all right, they're fighting. Um, and then the man says, or yeah, he says, tell me where your wife is and I won't hurt you. Tell me where your wife is and I won't kill you. And of course, Josh doesn't say anything. And all this time, I'm still on the phone with 911 and I'm relaying to the operator, you know, everything I'm hearing. Of course, she's telling me, you know, stay put, do not go out there, do not, you know, see what's happening. And, you know, eventually the grunting stops and I hear the front door open. So I'm like, okay, you know, maybe he left, maybe Josh left with him. Still didn't hear anything super concerning like gunshots or screaming or anything like that. So I'm telling the 911 operator, you know, like it's quiet. It's completely quiet. And she, you know, just tells me to stay there, wait for the police to come. Do not leave under the bed until the police are at my house. And I'm like, okay, come quick. You know, I don't know where they're at. And the 911 operator is telling me like, okay, the police are here. You don't see them, you don't hear them. And I'm like, no, do you have the right house? Like, and I guess the police did respond fairly quickly, as they had been just about 2 blocks over, responding to an arson that this man had caused before he came over to my house. So the police were at my house fairly quickly, but they did not enter the house. And that is a key detail in this situation. So they caught the man in my front yard. He was covered in blood. And the police were kind of just shooting the shit with him, you know, joking, like, what'd you do to yourself where you have blood all over yourself? Or like, oh, I knew we'd see you again later this week because I guess they had some interactions with him previously. So still, I'm begging the 911 operator, like, tell them to come inside. Like, I don't know what's going on in my house. I don't know if there's a second man in my house, you know, holding a gun to Josh's head. I don't know what's going on. So eventually I start seeing police like flashlights outside the window. And so in my position, I'm able to like reach my hand out from under my bed, and I just started like banging on the window to let them know, like, hey, someone's in here, like get inside this fucking house. Um, so they did. Suddenly flashlights everywhere in my house and come out from under the bed, and a police officer just starts bear hugging me from behind, like out of the house. And as he's walking me out the front door, I see Josh on the floor in our dining room, um, kind of fetal position. He's looked like he's knocked out. Now I don't know if this is my brain protecting me, but I didn't see anything too concerning. Didn't see blood and or anything. It just looked like I was like, okay, he got punched like really hard, and we're gonna wait for an ambulance to come. Like literally, what was going through my head at that moment, and this sounds crazy, is like, okay, I gotta find your insurance cards. Like we're going to the hospital. Where are my insurance cards? I need to go grab my wallet so we can go to the hospital. Um, so the police, bear hug me outside my house, sit me on the grass in my lawn, just in my pajamas. And I'm just sitting there. And no one's coming up to me, no one's telling me anything. And eventually they start putting up that yellow crime scene tape that you see in movies outside my front lawn. And that's kind of when I lost it. And I just remember like screaming at an officer, like, tell me what is going on. And still nothing. And eventually, my neighbor had come over, with all the ruckus and all the police lights. This was about 2 a.m. And she went up and had talked to a police officer. And then she walks over to me and says, Katrina, I'm so sorry. And I look at the police officer and I go, why is she telling me she's sorry? What's going on? Why won't you tell me going on? And the officer looks at me and says, I'm sorry, sweetheart, your husband passed away in there. And I wanted to puke and punch him at the same time. One of my biggest pet peeves is men calling me sweetheart or sweetie. And I was just so angry at him in that moment. I know it sounds silly for calling me sweetheart. And I don't know, I had a weird out of body experience. I can still picture myself sitting on my lawn in that moment. And things are a little chaotic. I can hear the man, they have him in the back of the police car singing country music.
Oh my
Which
God. That's
that
so
was very
creepy.
insensitive of the police officers. Yes. And eventually, they asked me, they sent like a victim services kind of van over, which I guess is like an extension of the police department, just kind of a team that comes out and deals with the victim element of violent crimes. So they sit me in the back of this van, and I am in the back of this van for over 4 hours, maybe 5 hours.
Shit, what?
Because the detective was up the street working on the arson that man had just dealt with. So all the while, I don't have anything. I don't have my glasses. I don't have my phone. I can't call anyone.
Oh my God, I didn't know this.
Yeah, it was a full shit show of things that went wrong that night. The victims people, the caseworker people are telling me what a cute neighborhood I live in. Yeah, which was absolutely inappropriate. The neighborhood my husband had just been murdered in. Like, yeah. And I was just like, I don't know, any days. They did bring my dog out to me.
Small mercies.
Right. And, eventually the detective came and spoke to me. She, asked me a few basic questions and asked me if I wanted to know what happened to Josh. And I said no. I assumed he was choked to death because I didn't see blood. I didn't see, anything violent going on. Then at one point she's like, can I show you a picture of something we found in front of your house? And I'm like, sure. And it's a knife. And she's like, is this your knife? And I was like, I don't fucking know. It's a silver knife with a black handle. They all look the same. So at that point, they drove me to my parents' house, which was just about 10 minutes away. My folks live super close. And just kind of, you know, one of the things I'll always remember, and I can still hear this in my head, is I called my mom and I said, "Mom, are you home? Um, just stay there. Something happened. The police are driving me over." And as this van is driving up to my parents' house, like my parents are waiting in the front yard for me. And they see me and my dog come out and they're like, "Where's Josh? What happened?" And I can just still hear it in my voice. And I just tell them he was murdered. Um, and yeah, then from there, it's a bit of a daze of calling people and figuring out what the fuck just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad called Josh's parents and Josh's brother. My mom called my best friend Rachel, who lives in California. And immediately, Rachel was with this guy she had just started dating. He drove her 8 hours from Los Angeles to Phoenix, like immediately, and took a one-way plane ticket back, which I will
Are they
forever
still
be
together?
grateful for him. They are, yes. So
Good.
shout out to Danny.
Sounds like
and
a
Rachel.
keeper.
Yes, yes. Um, and yeah, it's just a bit of a daze from there. We learned a lot in the months following that. I did hire a lawyer. I wasn't really sure why I was hiring a lawyer in the first place. I guess I just thought the response to get to me and into my house was a little slow, especially since they had just been up the street and responded so quickly and apprehended the man so quickly. But
And it was
thankfully,
it was a long time as well, wasn't it? From when you made the call to when the police came in and then when the medics came.
so the amount of time from when I made the call to when the police came and ushered me out of my bed was over 11 minutes. But I believe the police were in the front yard apprehending the man within like 3 or 4 minutes.
So,
Um,
and nobody thought to enter the house at this point.
no. And we know all this, and luckily, thankfully, and I use those terms very loosely, is the responding officer to my house was wearing a body camera, which is not something most officers do here. Very few officers wear body cameras. And that's how we learned, they were just kind of in the front yard shooting the shit with this man. All the while, Josh is dying in my dining room. And I guess I haven't explained or told you how he was killed yet, because I just, had assumed he was strangled. But he was stabbed to death. And I didn't learn, because I didn't want to, until, gosh, maybe just a year or two ago, that he was stabbed to death stabbed over a dozen times. A lot of the wounds were on his hands. They were defensive wounds. But the one that was kind of the fatal blow was in kind of under his armpits in the rib cage. So it went through into the lungs. And side note, Rosie, this is really weird. Before I knew he was stabbed there, and that was kind of the fatal blow, I have a Josh memorial tattoo right here in the
I
exact
know
same
you
spot.
have that tattoo.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yes.
But also,
that's weird.
Kat, you said that when all this was happening, there was no screaming. And I'm wondering, do you think that he was quiet to protect you, so as not to frighten you?
I have no idea. I mean, I did hear the grunts. I'm not sure if that's just was his natural reaction to pain or what was going on. I guess I had never heard him scream. He had no
No.
reason to, but yeah, that is something that I think about a lot, is just what he was going through then and how scared he must have been, and how, I mean, obviously he was trying to protect me. That man said, "Tell me where your wife is and I won't kill you."
I know. What a
He still
man.
didn't say anything.
What a wonderful man.
Yes. Yeah. And something I'm not religious, I don't pray, but I use the word, I just hope he was alive when the police were taking me out of the house, just so he could
Knew you were
know
safe.
that saved me. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, so yeah, we know Josh was dying on my floor as the police were just outside shooting the shit with this man.
And they were
Um,
being quite flippant, weren't they? They were
they
making
were.
really like jokey, bantery type comments with this guy,
Mhm. Yes,
which even if they didn't know that Josh was, you know, dying, you'd think that they would have accessed the house to just check that you were okay, that
right.
nothing. I
And that's
can't
protocol,
comprehend it.
uh,
Yeah.
especially after he's been apprehended. Like, so yeah, the police fucked up big time, and a lot of my anger is held towards the Phoenix Police Department. Um, I know I am angry at the man that killed him, but I am also incredibly angry at the Phoenix Police Department. They're supposed to be the helpers. You call the police when you need help. That's what you've
Yeah.
been told since you were a little kid, and I needed help, and
And
they
they didn't
didn't. I mean,
come.
the man even left my house on his own accord. So
Uh,
we did. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to ask, I mean, do they know what prompted it? Why you? Why your house? Why this guy? Because he'd already um, been apprehended for
Mhm,
arson up the street. And then I mean, I'm assuming mental health issues. And I mean, you kind of tell me in more
mhm.
detail.
Yeah, sure. So this man was just kind of on a night of terror. Prior to setting a small apartment complex on fire, he had tried to and assault a young woman getting out of her car. So he had chased her like into her backyard, broke through a glass door,
Shit.
and she ran into a neighbor's house, and that's when he set the whole kind of apartment complex on fire. Luckily, it was put out in a reasonable amount of time. There wasn't too much damage or anyone hurt over there. And he just, yeah, I think he was just looking for houses. I don't know, houses to go into. I don't know why our house specifically. I've thought about that a lot. I don't think there was anything that our house stood out from other houses. Um, but he was schizophrenic and on meth.
Wow.
He was, what he says is he thought people were out to get him. And so he was looking for places to hide. And when Josh confronted him, he was scared. Um, right. So he reacted by stabbing him to death. Um,
And did he go to court and sort of plead diminished responsibility for his actions?
yeah. So the court process, the criminal court process was really interesting. We also went through a civil court process because I did sue the police department and some of these
Good.
community mental health agencies that were supposed to be tracking him, and got a significant settlement from the police department, which tells me they didn't even want to go to court. They knew they fucked up big time, so they were just like, okay, we'll make this go away. But from the criminal court side of things, yeah. So he did go through the hearing to see if he was mentally competent to stand trial, and uh, it was the first expert said no, he was not competent. Then a second expert was brought in and said yes, he is competent. And so there was kind of a differing of opinions there.
Did you say the
Um,
second doctor was rotten?
I mean, I don't know anything about them. They're an expert, but he said he was competent to stand
And
trial.
you don't think he
Um,
was?
I think he definitely had mental health issues.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously enough to kill a man in his own home. Um, but and I think it was amplified by the meth that he was on. I do think he probably knew what was going on, though.
Yeah.
And as my lawyer had told me, once this man was in prison and got medicated and sobered up a bit, he did seem competent enough to know what was going on. I did not go to any of the court scenes or court hearings. I did not want to see that man. I was terrified of him. Uh,
Yeah.
the last time I saw him was, the night my world flipped apart.
And that shadow,
Um,
that outline, that must be. I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
That silhouette. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Did he show any remorse once he was sort of medicated and getting treatment?
just kind of, basic, like when you're in court pleading to the judge, like, I'm sorry I did that.
Please don't put me away forever. But yeah.
Right. Right. So it ended after 4 years of hearings. So we also had a pandemic in the middle of that. So, things were
We certainly
obviously
did.
delayed from that. So it was 1 week before the 5th anniversary. He pled guilty. So what that means is it doesn't go through court. It doesn't go through trial. Him and the prosecutor agreed on a sentence. So he got 25 years for the murder of Josh, plus 10 years for the arson up the street. And those are set to be run consecutively. So 35 years total.
It's interesting that there's not that, I mean, it's a big difference, but it's not as significant a difference as I would have expected for the two crimes. I would have expected a much bigger sentence.
Right. I do agree with that. And especially because, 25 is the minimum for murder. And it's not like Josh did anything to provoke this. It wasn't like he was out on the street shouting at him. Right. Exactly. Right. This man entered our home while we were sleeping.
And that is the ultimate, isn't it? The ultimate that somebody crossing the threshold of your castle, of your home.
Right.
And I actually, it's nothing in comparison to this, but when I was at university, I was at university in London, and I had a little 2 up, 2 down student house with a friend. And my door opened, my bedroom door one night, and I sort of sat up, saw there was a man in the doorway, and then lay back and closed my eyes again. And it took that sort of real delay for me to realise that there was a man in my room. Now, my boyfriend at the time was there, and he got him out of the house. And the police did turn up for me, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which was decent of them. But nothing happened. There was no injury. There was no harm. He took my passport. That was it. But even in that one kind of 20 seconds of my life, that terror of the realisation there is somebody in your home, and for that to happen to you, and for that nightmare to just exacerbate, for it to just explode.
Right.
And I don't think I'm the only person that will be wondering how the fuck you begin to recover from that. Because I'm a widow, obviously, and all my guests are widows. And some of them, their partners have died in horrible, shocking ways. Some have taken their own lives. Some have been drugged. But I just think that there is nothing as terrifying as this. And what did you do? How did you even begin to unpick this trauma? Because I know that you're an incredible human being and that you're doing amazing things. And I want you to tell us more about this. But where did you begin? Like, what on earth did you do first?
Something that you don't realize is so important until it's taken away is a sense of safety.
Yeah.
It's something we just, most of us in our lives just kind of go about just feeling somewhat normal sense of safety, especially in your own home. And when that's taken away, especially in your own home, it is constantly terrifying. So I did live with my parents for about 6 months afterwards, before I rented my own place. And I was getting a lot of therapy. For a while, I was seeing 2 therapists, one of my trauma specialty therapists of my own, and one that my work had provided me with. And my trauma therapist, we did a lot of EMDR therapy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about EMDR because it's you really recommend it, or really found it helpful, didn't you?
Yes. I think that is the thing I credit most with helping my fear issues. It's hard going into EMDR therapy. I mean, the goal is kind of put you emotionally back in that situation. But it really helped with my fear. And we still do it occasionally if issues come up for me. But that was super helpful. And I just, I sleep with a loaded gun by my bed now.
Do you?
I do. Prior to this, I never owned a gun. I'm strongly anti-gun. But my my aunt is an instructor for the NRA, and when I was ready and I brought it up and asked her to, she took me out, we learned how to shoot. She helped me pick one out, and yeah, it's loaded and ready to go right at my bedside. I don't have children at my home, so but I also have a 100-pound German Shepherd. I have cameras all on my property. I have house alarms, doors that beep when they open, all these just security measures I never had before, just to feel safe in my own home. And it does provide a sense of safety. But
And you bought your own home, haven't you now? So
yes,
you've created your own castle, as it were.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, most of the time I do feel safe here. There are, things always come up occasionally. And, sometimes it's scary at night and
And
just,
what about stuff like TV? Like, I know this sounds like a really
mm,
stupid thing, but I, for example, cannot watch a program where there's a drowned body.
mhm,
I haven't, obviously, I've never seen Ben's body. I do not want to see the possibility of what it
right.
might look like. Now, your story is much more likely to be kind of replicated in books, TV shows,
Hmm.
films, because for the very fact that it is our worst fear as a human being.
Right.
So you must be exposed to that more than you're comfortable with. Are you okay with that? I know that you binge watched The Office for like 3 years straight.
True. Yes, yes. So yeah, no, that's an interesting question. I am no longer interested in true crime. I
No.
used to be, into those podcasts and those shows, on the Discovery Channel. Um, Zero interest in those. And when I do think about those situations, like I think Netflix released one recently about Jeffrey Dahmer, and I remember the victims' families in that situation were not happy about that, and I felt for them so much. Um, and I just kind of think about that from the victim perspective now, and how this is entertainment to people.
Yeah.
Um, these stories are what people listen to while they're doing the dishes or watch when they want to chill when they come home from work. And these are the worst times of people's lives. Um,
And so often they focus on the more salacious details, of the
right.
murders, of the crime, and actually the victim's voice in this gets forgotten. Um,
Exactly. Yes.
and just
Yeah.
quickly, you've done? I know that America is much more progressive in many ways, not in all, than us in terms of trauma treatment, because you
Mm,
guys can access MDMA therapies and ketamine therapies relatively easily, I believe. And we can access ketamine therapy here, but it's very, very expensive. And I just wondered if you were comfortable sharing anything about those, just because for me, really, I'm a bit curious.
right. So currently, MDMA therapy is not legal. It's in its
Okay.
final phases of trial with the Food and Drug Administration. So it's getting close. And there are some practitioners that will help you with that, kind of, off the record.
Yeah.
But ketamine therapy is legal, and it's called off label. So ketamine is typically used as like a sedative
Yeah.
for surgeries, but you can use it off label also for mental health treatment. And I did do ketamine therapy when my depression was really bad. That first, uh, probably about 9 months, I remember it. I think it was in December when I started the ketamine therapy, just being in this really deep, dark hole. And I had a trip to Patagonia, Argentina over Christmas, my first Christmas, without Josh. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know, like, do I have to come home from this trip? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Scary thoughts that I didn't like myself having, that I never had before. So I was able to do ketamine therapy, which shows a lot of promise for treatment for depression, and specifically for people who have been trying, who have been suffering depression for years, and things have been resistant to medication. I was kind of just, I was in, an ignorant bliss before all this. Never had an anxiety, never had depression, had a pretty easy family life. Grandparents died at a normal age. Things, life was pretty easy in that sense. But when the depression hit, it hit hard. So we were able to do, ketamine therapy, and that definitely helped me get out of that hole.
And what did they do?
Uh,
Did they do intravenous or the nasal spray? Intravenous.
yes, intravenous. So yeah, I would lay kind of in a comfy chair in a doctor's office, and they would give me an IV for an hour. And I always say it was kind of the funnest treatment I ever had, because it is psychedelic. So I would sit there with my iPad and watch nature documentaries, and just like, it's kind of nice thoughts too. It's just like, I kept thinking how death is a part of life, and we're all connected, and, natural, and things like that. So it's nice and fun to have those thoughts. And somehow, yeah, it works its magic on the back end.
It is.
Um,
I think I know my psychiatrist said he'd been to a conference and
mhm.
they were really talking about psychedelics, but,
Yes.
psilocybin and its work with treatment-resistant depression. So I think
Mhm.
it's coming, isn't it? It's just changing people's perceptions around, we don't even have legal cannabis in this country yet, apart from medical
Oh,
use for
wow.
some people. So I think it's coming and hopefully it'll happen in our lifetime. But it does seem
Yes.
frustrating to be when there is so much available that is probably so much safer or, better acting than the traditional
Mhm.
antidepressants and talk therapies. But, that's a subject for another for another podcast,
Right, and the nice
probably.
thing is, with a lot of these psychedelic treatments, you just, need a handful,
Yeah.
less than a dozen sessions, some of them even just one session, and people feel better. So that, yeah, it's the research on it is amazing. Yeah, that could be its whole. There are own podcasts on that. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, I would like to do it. I would really like to do a full psilocybin immersion retreat. And I did
Hmm.
actually go out to Amsterdam to do one.
Oh, wow.
But I was pretty deregulated before I even went. And
Okay.
I had a bit of a panic attack. And it just,
Hmm.
thankfully, I didn't do it because I think you have to be very much in the right
Right.
frame of mind. And I think what I'd actually like to do is do it in a much more medical setting. So what I'm
Hmm.
kind of waiting for is them to roll it out as a proper medical treatment. But yeah, I'm
Hmm.
definitely, and the same with the EMDR. I went to one session with a woman, and I wasn't comfortable, so I stopped. I stopped
Yeah.
it. So I'm kind of hoping I can find somebody that I feel comfortable enough to do this with. And I
Hmm.
really admire you because and this is not me kind of blowing smoke up your bottom, but it's. I just remember the way you ran full pelt at getting better. Like you
Mm.
just engaged with every therapy, every possible route that there was to try and get better. You took it.
Yes.
And it took me longer to get there. I wallowed in the bottle for
Yes.
quite some
Hmm.
time. And I kind of remember seeing you and just thinking, fucking hell, if she can do it, Rosie, for God's sake, get a therapy. And one of the other things that you've done a lot of is travel. And
Yes.
I do think that is the gift to the non-parents who are widowed, because being that kind of freedom to go and see the world must be quite liberating. But that said, my kids kind of kept me from the brink, so
Hmm.
and
Sure.
I kind of like them, So, but talk to me a little bit about that, because did you at any point feel that you were kind of outrunning your grief, or did you feel like was it you that took Josh with you? Took his
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Josh is all over the world. He's in Argentina. He's in Chile. He's in Yosemite National Park. He's in the Grand Canyon. He got thrown off at a waterfall somewhere. So he's all over the place. But for me, and especially in probably maybe the 2 years after he was killed, it was really important for me to see that there was still beauty in the world, like physical beauty, uh, and just kind people, and just realizing that there's places I still want to see and things I still want to do. And that even though I don't have my husband with me, there's still life that I want to live. And I think that was, yeah, it was very important for me. It was a lifeline for me. And I don't know if it was escaping grief as much as it was maybe just working with it and exploring
Mm.
it. Because, yeah, Josh did go with me to a lot of those places. I do remember the first trip I took, though. So Josh's best friend, the one I kind of met him
Dustin?
through. Yes, Dustin. Yeah. So he lives in Hawaii now. So I took a trip out there 2 months later, for Josh's birthday, 2 months after he was killed. And I remember being on that plane and landing in Hawaii, and I just start crying. I'm like, who the fuck lands in Hawaii and just starts crying? Like,
Widows, that's who.
right, right. I know. And on the airplane, it's all these couples going on their honeymoons, and yeah.
You've got your urn.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it was really important for me to see that. And prior to that, too, my friend had taken me canyoneering. So we'd rappel down canyons, and into
Sounds
like water pools
absolutely
sometimes.
horrible.
Oh, it was so much fun. And yeah, that for me, the fun and the exhilaration of it felt so amazing. But also the fact, like, I'm being held on by a literal rope. And if I want to, I don't have to, I
Yeah.
can cut that rope. And I could have, but I didn't. And that was the first moment. And I told my friend this who tipped me, is where I thought I'm going to be okay.
Because
So
you made that
just,
choice. Yeah.
yeah, realizing I made that choice and just realizing there's still beauty and things I want to see and things I want to do.
I did a reading at Ben's memorial service, and it was kind of in the style of a letter that I wrote to him.
Mhm.
And one of the things I wrote in there was I promised to, I can't remember the exact words, but I promised to show the children that there is still a beautiful world out there.
Yeah,
And so when you said that, that really resonated, because in the moment when you lose the person you love most in the world, you cannot, there isn't any beauty. Everything
right.
in a film where it goes from color to black and white. It sounds cliche, but that's true, right?
No,
Everything just
yeah.
looks
Mhm.
bleak and you can't envisage any happiness and joy. And I think to go to some of the most beautiful places in the world, to take these kind of calculated risks,
Mhm.
it does make you feel alive, and it makes you feel kind of small in the great scheme of things. Now, I just wanted to know
Right.
as well, were you bit of an adrenaline junkie before, or is that something that was triggered by this?
I wouldn't say adrenaline junkie. I mean, I went skydiving once.
No, I'm going to say adrenaline junkie then.
I wouldn't do it again. But yeah, I mean, I was fine with some adrenaline. It's not something like I actively sought out all the time. But it can feel nice sometimes. Just
Yeah.
being in a safe environment where you can feel these kind of scared feelings.
And
Um,
this is just purely out of doziness, but what's the best place you've ever been? Like, what's the coolest thing you've seen on your travels?
so well, gosh, I was just in New Zealand earlier this year, and that was gorgeous. But Josh and I went to Iceland for our honeymoon. We spent 3 weeks driving around Iceland and hiking in the Highlands, and that was one of the most beautiful. Iceland and New Zealand are probably the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. That I tell everyone my favorite city in the world is Buenos Aires in Argentina. It's just so lively and colorful, and it's just beautiful. Yeah.
Bit like you. Lively and colourful and beautiful. If you're only listening,
Oh,
because you won't be able to see that Kat's got, is it purple or pink hair we've got?
both purple, pink, and
Purple and
blue.
pink, very nice. Oh, I'm blue at the bottom. Lovely. Now, I if I may, I want
Hmm.
to ask you a little bit about the fact that you now have another traveling companion, don't you?
Yes,
You
I
have
do.
somebody
Yes.
to come on your adventures with. Now, I've not met this guy, but in my eyes, anybody that kind of takes one of us on is kind and good to us and understands how complicated we are and loves us, not in spite of it, but kind of in because of it in a way.
Yeah,
And it's Cody, your partner, isn't
it
he?
is. Yes. Yes, Cody.
Um, so just tell me, if you're comfortable doing so, if he doesn't mind,
Sure.
sorry, Cody, just a little bit about how you met, because it's very frightening dating again when you're widowed, and
Yes.
the level of trauma that you had experienced, I think perhaps would make you a little bit scared about doing anything like that
Yes.
again.
Yeah, I was very scared around dating. And one of the things that scared me is um, I'm very Googleable now.
Hmm.
So you can find out everything that happened by searching my name. You can find out settlement information and details, um, which, you don't want someone you've just talked to know your financial situation right off the bat. So I
Yeah,
was
I never
terrified
thought
of
of
that.
that.
Yeah. Um, but, it was about 3 years after Josh had died. Uh, and I was sitting on the couch drinking rosé and watching The Bachelorette. Um, and my friend and I kind of downloaded a fake Bumble on her phone just to kind of play with it and see what it's like. So I downloaded it for reals and made a real profile. And I was drinking, and I just had a great time swiping around. And it's kind of fun judging people like that. Like,
Yeah,
I had never done online dating before. And I
no, me
know
neither.
everyone who does it regularly now hates it, but your first like 2 days is kind of
Yeah. It's like dipping your toe into this other world, isn't it?
fun. Right, right. So I'm having a grand old time swiping around. And then I go to bed, and the next morning I have like all these matches. I'm like, holy shit.
Show off.
And I and like I use Bumble. So you have like 24 hours or something to initiate a conversation, otherwise they go away. Luckily, I had therapy that day, and I was like, I kind of freak out by what I just did, but some of these guys are actually kind of cute and seem kind of cool. So I did end up messaging just like 2 or 3 guys, one of them being Cody. And Cody and I hit it off most, so we just kept texting and started talking. Um, and yeah, we had kind of our first date over Zoom because it was in 2020. Um, and hit it off from there. Eventually, we did meet for a coffee and dinner. And at dinner, I did, tell him I was widowed. And the first thing he said, well, do you think you're okay to date? Do you think you're ready to date? And I was like, I do. And I think it was either that evening or shortly after. Cody texted me wanting to know all of the important Josh dates so that he could either be there for me or to celebrate Josh, whichever was appropriate. And when he
Oh,
said that, I was like,
oh
okay,
my.
done.
Sold.
Sold.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yes.
What a
Yes.
lovely thing to do. That is
Yes.
such a kind of emotionally intelligent, kind
Yes.
thing to
Very.
do. I
Very.
like
Yes.
him.
So he is the first and only date I went on. And here we are almost 4 years later. And I just feel incredibly lucky for that.
And it's so weird saying it, isn't it? To say you feel
Right.
lucky after everything you've been through.
I know. I had heard nothing but horror stories, especially from widows dating. Yeah, I got a good one.
You really did. You really did. I'm so pleased
Yes.
for you both. Now, at Josh's funeral, was it one of his friends that talked about I'm not going to try and do it justice, but something about the particles carrying on existing.
Oh,
Is that something that you can condense into sort of idiot terms so I might understand it?
yeah. So it's a common thing you can find online. I think it's called like eulogy from a physicist or something like that. And I thought it was really beautiful. I think my friend had found it, and we had her husband read it because he was an engineer like Josh was. Um, and it's just really nice. We at our wedding, Josh and I had done a reading by Carl Sagan, the astronomer, just kind of talking about in the passage from the Pale Blue Dot, just kind of the vastness of the universe and the improbability of two people meeting and kind of coming to this point. So I thought, that eulogy would kind of just be very fitting. And what kind of the gist of what it says is, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. And his particles are still around. His energy is still around. Um, and you see a flicker in the eye, and I don't know, it feels really nice. And being someone who's not religious, I can see how people find comfort in religious texts and passages, but that's not something I feel. So to have that more, I don't know, kind of science-based text that brought out that kind of emotion in me, that just brought some comfort and felt nice to hear. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's very nice.
I'm going
passage.
to find it actually and share it because
Yes.
I'm like you, I'm not religious, and I do
Mhm.
struggle with the idea of him just stopping,
Yes.
how, right? But also
Right.
I struggle with the idea that he's always with me. I find that slightly creepy,
Right.
like literally always, because that's weird. And so, and I guess I've not had any kind of spiritual or I don't know what the word is, sort of signs or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
and I'm a skeptic until I'm in a more evidence based, I
Right.
guess. So I like the thought of this, that the energy doesn't go, that, that kind of
Right.
integral part of them carries on. Because how can they really be gone? You're right. You do see
Right.
little glimmers of them everywhere. And, it's not even necessarily just in my children. Being with Ben impacted and shaped who I am. We were together for nearly
Mhm.
14 years. So, of course, he impacted me, which has an impact on other people. And it's like
Yes.
I'm waffling, aren't I? But you know what I'm trying to say here.
I know exactly what you're trying to say. Yes. Yes. And yeah, sometimes I feel like I force myself. I'm like, is this a sign? Is this something from
Yeah,
Josh?
yeah.
Because I want that so bad. But I do feel like I've had some genuine ones. And that kind of, it just makes me question what happens after you die. I don't know if it's like a physical presence or if it is just energy floating around and he can bump the energy in a certain direction towards me.
Do you think that he'd like Cody?
I do. I think they are incredibly different
Mhm.
people. I'm a very different person now than when I was with Josh. Um, I don't think they would have a ton in common, but they are both very nice men. They are very open to other people. Um, and yeah, I think they would get along and they would be friendly. I don't know if they'd be best friends because I
No.
don't think they have a ton in common. But yeah, I do think he would like him and
And there's a
appreciate him
slight
and like
conflict
the
of
way he's
interest.
treating me. Right?
But yeah, I feel the same way. Ben and John are incredibly different people. The
Mhm.
similarities, they're both from the north, but that's about as far as it goes. And
Yeah.
but I genuinely, and I don't think I'm saying this just to make myself feel better. I genuinely think that yes, he would much rather be here. Of course he would.
Right.
But if somebody had to be in my life and my children's lives, then
Mhm.
he'd be pretty pleased because like
Right.
you do sometimes think I am quite lucky because some people don't find it once. And then to find somebody that loves and cherishes you for who you are twice,
Yeah.
like that's pretty special.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. And, I recently had someone um, ask me if it's someone I don't know closely, but she asked me if I thought Cody was like the one. And I was like, well, if you're referring to the one as in like soulmates, I don't know that that's something I believe in. I, do think there's more than one person for everyone. And it's lucky when you find that person and have that connection with that person. But if yeah, just the idea of having one person and then if that one person dies, that sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, there's it's you can find love again, and you can have love in your heart for more than one person, and it's
You
not.
really can.
I'm not erasing the judge for Josh, and I'm not diminishing the love for Cody. It's just
It just kind
you
of
can do,
coexists.
yeah, and
And I
yes,
think you hit the nail on the head
exactly, coexist.
when you said that you're not the same person and you're not. That that
Right.
person has essentially died,
Yes.
with Josh, because how can you possibly be the same person after that? So
Right.
yeah, I agree with you on the soulmate thing. I think it's a lovely romantic notion that there's one person out there for all of
Yeah.
us. But yeah, what
Yeah.
happens if they die? And what happens if they live in like, I don't know, Australia or something? What, you just never
Right.
meet your
Exactly.
person?
Exactly.
It all
Yes.
seems a little bit lottery based to me, that. Now, Kat, in the process of going through the kind of legal proceedings that you had to,
Mhm.
you basically realised that victims are not protected and supported anywhere near enough, particularly with violent crime. So
Mhm.
I did have the name of the charity that you work for, and I can't find it now. So I tell you what, you tell me, what is the organisation that you support now? Because I know that you were in Washington, weren't you? You went to the White
Yes,
House.
yeah, yeah. I was just in DC a few weeks ago, advocating for more rights for crime survivors. So I'm with an organization called Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice, and what we do, is just kind of want to ensure that survivors of crime have a seat at the table whenever important decisions are being made in criminal justice. Like you kind of mentioned early, victims are often the forgotten ones in the criminal justice process. All the focus is on the offender, and victims are just kind of the annoying emotional piece that gets in the way of all of that. So it's up until recently there in Arizona, there's a board that makes decision as to where, grants and funding go towards criminal justice agencies. And it was all run by like judges and police officers, not a single person, representing the victims on there. So now they do have a mental health professional on that board, and they have a victims advocate on that board too. Um, but yeah, I didn't like the way I was treated as a victim. I had some uh, very infuriating experiences, and this is, my anger is something that I think drove me joining this organization. It was a good outlet for my anger, like literally being able to make changes in this field. And so we advocate at a state level, but we are starting to get into federal legislation here in the states. But just, yeah, making sure victims have access to, in the states, we have victims compensation, where if you're a crime victim, They'll pay for the burial of the person. They'll pay for your therapy. But there's, silly reasons why they can deny you for that. I know people who had outstanding court fines for minor infractions, and they get denied for that. I know
Mhm.
someone who was originally denied because the offender was not originally caught, and they were like, "Well, what if he committed suicide?" Um, yeah, so just very silly reasons they can deny you for. So I'm doing a lot of work with victims compensation because I did receive victim compensation. I know how helpful and important that is. Um, and yeah, just this organization in general has been a good way to make it feel like I'm doing something with all this bullshit I had to deal with
Yeah.
and helping people, maybe make it a little easier, maybe a little better. We're really focusing on setting up trauma recovery centers, which is where you can go after a crime, and there'll be a caseworker who can help you figure out therapy. They can help you figure out what's going on with the police. They can help you figure out the court, all the paperwork. There's so much paperwork
Mhm.
involved with being a crime victim. Jesus. Um, and there's nothing like that, otherwise it's just you have a list of people you need to call and a list of things you need to look up. So having all of that access in one place would be really beneficial to a lot of trauma survivors. Because we also know a lot of, people, a lot of offenders, a lot of violent crime offenders were victims of trauma at some point.
So you're
Um,
sort of getting to the source almost and
right.
supporting people at the point. Um, I just quickly before I don't I realise I'm going kind of back into a different conversation here, but I keep thinking about the fact that he will serve 35 years, and that's at the
Mhm.
most, isn't it? That's without any parole.
So
Or
parole's not an option. He's serving
okay,
flat time, so that means no parole. He does get credit for 5 years because he was in jail for 5 years before they sentenced him. So it's pretty much 30 more years.
and bit personal. But how old are you now?
I just turned 38.
So. So you, sorry, my maths is terrible, but you could be 70s, early 70s, 30, 60, 68, so 68
Mhm,
when he's released.
mhm.
How does that make you feel?
Pretty pissed off.
Mm,
Um, my lawyer has assured me, like, this guy, I think, was in his early 40s. He looked much older because the drugs did a number on him.
mm,
Um, so, I mean, he, yeah, could be
yeah,
released if he lives a normal human lifespan. Thinking the drugs took a toll on him. I'm hoping prison life isn't good for him. I'm not in the space where I have any kind of forgiveness or care for him.
no.
I hate him, and I know restorative justice works for a lot of people, and I support them if they want to, forgive or have a conversation with the offender. But I have absolutely no interest in doing that.
Because when the press obviously have had some interest in your case, particularly
Yes.
the local press, and because I obviously I did a bit of research before we came on, and his face was just like there, and I'd never
Yes.
seen his face, and I this is the man that took from my very good friend her most
Yeah.
precious thing,
That's how I
and
first saw his face.
and
You
that
pull
really
up that news
shocked
article.
me.
Yeah.
And so that I just can't imagine how it must have felt to click on their website and to just see
hmm
the face right there. That must have been absolutely horrifying for
It was
you.
incredibly jarring. Uh, and I remember my initial reaction was like, that man is disgusting. And obviously, he did something very disgusting, but I just thought he looked disgusting too. Um, it, yeah, was very jarring for that to just kind of pop up like that.
Mm.
Um, and the neighbor
And
who, yeah,
sorry, I was going to say the other thing is the headlines. Like I won't disclose, but they talk about the financial settlement right in the headline. Like
yes,
that's the head story, not the murder, not the
right.
incompetencies, but the. I mean, yes, the settlement's referring to the incompetencies, but I thought that's very typical in a lot of ways of the press to really sensationalize that aspect. And
hmm
again, it's really not paying attention to the victim and in this and the
right.
trauma. Printing your name next to a figure of money, like that's That feels
Oh,
really
look what she got.
insensitive. Yeah. And
Yes.
also the fact that you are now vulnerable, and then
Right.
it just, the whole thing just is so horrible. The entire thing is just absolutely awful. And it's just made so much worse by people being so insensitive and actually incompetent.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I can't tell you the amount of the settlement I got because
I
I
wouldn't
can't
ask you,
disclose
darling.
that.
I
But
just like I wouldn't
it's
ask your
I
weight.
know, but it's interesting
Did
because
ask your
it's
age though.
public record because it was the government paying it. So that news article has it there. You can go look it up online. But yeah, I believe that story you're referring to originally had my photo in it as well. But calls were made because they just stole my Facebook picture because all my socials were locked down at that point, and put it up there. So friends made calls and that got taken down.
But that is
Um,
such a you feel so completely violated anyway when somebody dies. For you, of course you do. And then to
mhm.
have the press take your image and put it out there, like that's just, it's like having bits of you just stripped away.
I have an even more infuriating story.
Go on,
I don't
go
know
on.
if, yeah. So I had just gotten home from my big trip to Patagonia to Argentina, and I had just gone through 28 hours of flights. I was back home sitting on my parents' couch. It was in the morning, drinking coffee. My folks have the news on in the background, and all of a sudden the news starts playing a 911 tape.
No.
And at first, I hear it's like there's an intruder in my house. And I'm like, oh God, is this happening to someone again? It was my 911 tape.
No.
I scream at my parents to turn the TV off. And I'm just absolutely shaken. Um, I
That's
mean, that is public record.
awful.
I don't know why it was on the news 9 months later. It may have just been released at that point. But they don't need to let me know they're doing that. They don't need my permission to do that.
I mean, you'd
I
think
did.
human decency though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. The victim could have been and was accidentally watching that. I had an army of people call and email that
I
news
know.
station, and I don't believe it was played again. I don't believe it was showed again. Um, so I am
It's
very thankful for the people
horrible.
in my corner for multiple reasons. But yeah, that was very upsetting as a victim and something a victim should not have to go through.
Jesus Christ.
I,
And
I
you
never want to
think,
hear that phone call ever. Yeah, I still haven't seen any pictures from that night. I
no,
don't want
why
that.
would you want to? I mean, although I did speak to somebody who had listened back to the
Mhm.
999 call in this country,
Okay, yes.
and because she really felt that it was part of her healing process, but
Mm,
it was very different circumstances. So
sure. Yeah,
yeah, like, oh my God, to just be sitting there having a coffee and to hear your own voice in the most terrifying moment of your life
right.
being broadcast as entertainment.
Right. Right. As
I'm
something that
so
wasn't
sorry
even
that happened.
relevant anymore because it was months later. Yeah. Yeah. It was, yeah, very jarring and very upsetting and just makes me angry now thinking about it.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you if you feel like the anger towards the law enforcement officers and the failings that happened, do you feel like
Mhm.
that has kind of dissipated now? You've got some answers. I assume they issued you with an apology because did they?
No,
No,
no
because I was going to
apology.
say the apology would probably, knowing you as I do, be worth more to you than any
Right.
compensation.
That's what I wanted. Yes.
Yeah.
So they don't want to issue an apology because that would be admitting they did something wrong.
But a
Um,
settlement obviously doesn't mean that.
right. Yeah. That just makes it go away. So from my understanding, I had been on the phone with the 911 operator being like, tell me where the police or, tell the police to come inside. I'm still in here. Tell the police to come inside. From my understanding, their excuse was that the 911 operator cannot communicate with a police officer if they're outside of their vehicle. Um,
What?
I don't know how true that is. They have uh,
Walkie talkies,
walkie-talkies
surely.
all over themselves. Um, I think that procedure was going to be reviewed, but I don't know that. Yeah, any changes have been made in that area, or yeah, I did really want an apology, and I wanted those specific officers to face repercussions.
And nothing?
But they did not as well. No.
Oh my God. That, it seems, even though I'm listening to you tell this story, that I know it's the absolute truth, it sounds like it can't possibly be. It sounds like
Right.
if you read this in a book, you'd say, this is ridiculous. This is so far-fetched. Surely there were not that many failings in this case.
Right. Yeah. So many things went wrong. If just one thing were different, Josh could very well still be alive.
And I think that probably is something that must torture you, the kind of the what ifs.
Yes.
And I think it's not, it's if the really grasp onto that possibility, what if, could they, and that must have been something that you've had to work really, really hard to
Yes.
to silence.
Yes. Yeah. That is something I worked with my therapist on a lot. It's a path I try not to go down because it could be a never ending path and very upsetting path. And I'm sure you know this as well. What if, what if
we didn't scuba dive on honeymoon? Yes.
Right. Exactly. What if, I had gone out there immediately once I heard it was quiet and I had heard him leave my house and I could have put pressure on the wound or got medical help. And we lived less than a mile from 2 level 1 emergency rooms. Like we could have gotten him to the hospital quick. What if so many things? What if I had screamed out and he just wanted to rape me and not kill Josh? Like there's so many what ifs, and it is what if he was stabbed this much in a different direction? So many possibilities. What if this man was supposed to be, checking in for his mental health treatment? What if he did that? He had interaction with the police officers like that week prior. What if so many what ifs.
And you could torture yourself until the end of time, couldn't you? And I think
yes,
that really affects this process that we're trying to get to. We all believe that acceptance is our kind of the holy grail. It's not really. You have to go through a lot of other shit after that, but it's that to accept that they've gone and it's completely unfair, completely unjust, and there's nothing that you can do to bring them back. There's nothing. And I think getting to that point is so tough. And the fact that you've had to go through so long, 4 years of legal work, and I can't even begin to imagine the paperwork. Like it's just knock on top of knock. And the fact that you are not only still standing, the fact that you are still so full of joy and love and hope is just a complete testament to who you are. And I suspect probably who Josh was as well, because as I said before, they shape who we are. And
right.
I think you are absolutely amazing. And I think that your story is so powerful and so moving and so horrifying, I'm afraid. But I think it's really important that people hear, because I don't know anybody that's experienced what you have. But there must be other people out there. There must be. Of course there are. And to hear...
And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this. I know I've been meaning to get together with you for a while. But
last time I had to fly to New York to see you, so
that's fine with me. But I remember kind of early on, and I'm pretty sure, it was Billy, one of our widow friends. I'm pretty sure he had sent me a podcast where this South African author had been through a home invasion where her husband was killed. And in that podcast, she talks about, I think she had kids in another room, but because she was just like frozen and terrified with fear, she could not go into that other room, like while the home invasion was occurring. And just hearing that made me feel a lot better. A lot of the times, one of my big what ifs is like, why didn't I just go out from under the bed? Why didn't I want to go help my husband? And, my therapist reminds me that it's not just flight or fight, it's flight, fight, or freeze. And freezing is a completely normal and appropriate reaction, especially if you're not, military trained or trained to go into those type of situations.
And also you were being told to do that as well. The operator, that's what they were telling you to do. And in that moment, I can only imagine that you need somebody to tell you what to do.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes just hearing someone with a relatable story helps, because what home invasions aren't common, murder's not common. Um, for the longest time, first of all, being a widow at 30 years old, I felt very alienated by that. But then he wasn't in a car accident. He didn't have cancer and of these quote unquote normal deaths for someone who was 35 years old, like Josh. Um, so it was a very abnormal death.
Yeah.
And just finding anyone who could relate to that was very helpful for me.
And also things like when you tell people, because it is, you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm a widow," and
Mhm.
people are quite shocked. And then presumably they would say, "Oh, that's terrible. How did he die?" And then you say, "He
Right.
was murdered in my home." And
Right.
so, and that, I mean, that's a conversation killer, isn't it? Or starter.
Boy,
The
yes.
starter go other way. And do you do you find yourself kind of softening the blow a little bit, and or do you just give the people the bare, like, this is what happened? I suppose sometimes I would say I'd give people, I might just avoid the issue, I might just
Mhm.
not mention it at all unless I
Right.
absolutely have to. And other times I just let them have the full bells and
Yes.
whistles. Do you find yourself cushioning it at all, or did you in the early days? Yeah.
I do. And I know that's something I don't have to do. It's worry about other people's comfort, because they're the ones who feel uncomfortable when I tell them that. But something I am very intentional with, and kind of bringing us to the very beginning of this conversation, is I tell people my husband was killed.
Yeah,
He didn't do
I
anything.
noticed. I
He
noticed that
didn't
you
die.
use that word that all the way
Yes.
through. I noticed that you say when Josh was killed,
Hmm.
as opposed, and I think a couple of times you said when he died, but mostly you said when he was
Right.
killed. And I really, I noticed that, and I thought that must be a deliberate choice that you've made.
Right.
Not that he was killed, but obviously.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and yeah, yeah, similar to you. Sometimes I'll just be like, I'd rather not get into it right now. Or I just say, yeah, he was murdered during a home invasion. And then it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then the conversation's over.
Now you'll be able to say, if you want to just listen to episode whatever you're going to be of Widowed AF, you can hear
Yes.
all the details there. There you go. I actually did. So you just listen to episode 3. It's all there.
Yes.
It's all there for you.
I will. Yes. I'll print out little
Yeah,
business cards or something.
yeah,
It'll be fun.
yeah. I've got a QR code on there.
Like,
You could have a
subscribe, and
QR code
follow.
linked to it. Yeah. Oh, Katrina, it's been incredible talking to you this evening. I've learned things about you that I didn't know. I've learned things about Josh that I didn't know. And I've learned things about Cody that I didn't know. So I feel like I've got a full, good, rounded picture. And I can't thank you enough for coming to share with me. I feel I feel quite humbled by it, actually, because I know that this is not something that you do talk about at length in great detail publicly. And I feel incredibly honoured that you chose to come on here. And I hope that you feel that it's been quite cathartic in a way. Um, and
Yes.
I
Yeah.
hope you feel rightly proud of yourself for doing this. And um, yeah, this is gonna become part of something bigger than us.
Right.
This collection of stories that we're creating together. And I hope that it does help to inform. So we're going to speak at an end of life conference actually next month, because it's
Oh,
starting
wow.
to seep into sort of education settings as
That's
well, because
amazing.
there just doesn't seem to be anything quite so in depth. And this is not me singing my
Right.
own praises. This is what you guys do by coming and telling your stories. And I think we talk a lot about legacy, and I think it's a really valuable way to leave a tribute to them, because their stories are kind of immortalized now.
Right.
Unless you hate it and make me take it down, but that won't happen.
No, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and for just doing all of this. Like, I was thought about sometimes if there was a podcast like yours, like when we first became widowed, like how I would have been so obsessed
We
with
would
it,
have
and like,
listened to it all the time, wouldn't we?
exactly.
I
Right,
spoke to somebody
right.
yesterday. She was widowed 9 months ago, and so she
Oh.
was really early on. And I don't tend to talk to
Hmm.
people that early on, but she was in a good place. But she said to me, I listened to you to go to sleep. And I thought, I think that's a
Oh my.
compliment. But I just thought that's what I would do. I'd listen to podcasts and
Right.
things to help me switch off, and finding that kind of friend in the darkness, that
Right.
camaraderie. And I think for us, it was that real dark humor as well. The fact that, all the way through this episode, we've just been laughing.
Mhm.
We've been talking about your husband being murdered. And then in the next conversation, we've laughed because being a
Right.
widow doesn't strip you of who you are completely. You still need to
Right.
find things funny. And my God, if we don't laugh about it, then it's like, we'll just cry all the time, and nobody wants that, do they?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's just so helpful and important to find people that are relatable, or a story
Mm.
that's relatable. I just felt so alone. And Rosie, one of the things that I think connected me to you and drew me to you was that you and Ben are this beautiful, gorgeous couple in this pinnacle of health and everything's fine. And then he's dead.
Bang.
There was no illness where he, slowly became a shell of himself. He was, normal everyday Ben, I assume. And then he was just dead. And
Normal might have been pushing it, but.
and then, I had this husband who was completely fine and doing good. And then he just dead. These, I don't know if you call them freak accidents or what, but they just,
it's the lightning bolt, isn't it? From nowhere.
Right.
It's that horrible lightning bolt, and then that kind of chasm between before and after. And I think unless you have lost somebody in a sudden way, it's something that's really difficult to understand.
Right.
But it's been really lovely to see your face, and
Yes,
as always,
likewise.
I think you're the bee's knees. I really do, and I am going to come to America fairly soon, but not to your neck of the woods. But I'm going to try and get over there next year if I can.
Yes, I want to get over towards you too.
Yes.
Cody lived in England for a few months and has been dying to go back.
As long as he doesn't make me cook vegan food for him, then he can come.
Oh, bummer.
My friend who's vegan, she just got pasta and tomato sauce. I was like, there you go, vegan food.
Hey, that works. Give me a bowl of cereal.
Right? That's what my kids live on anyway. But for now, my darling, I'm going to say bye. And thank you once again for coming on and for speaking so eloquently about, firstly, the enormous love that you and Josh shared, and also, of course, the horrific way in which he died. For anybody out there that has been affected by this episode, I know I have, you can reach out to me, and you can probably message me to speak to Katrina, and I can pass messages on. But for everybody else out there, whoever you are, wherever you may be, I wish you much love, and I will be back with you soon. Take care. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widowed AF.